I've always wondered when someone like you, since you were 13 or 14 years old, you have been kind of catered to and everybody telling you how wonderful you are and how great you are, and getting into high school with the same thing. What is it like now coming to this level with the level of expectations you had? It's probably even higher than it was at Clemson.
Yeah, for me, I've kind of dealt with that for a few years, so it's just not changing anything. Just continuing to be who I am and bringing that into a new place. I've learned so many great things at Clemson, been surrounded by great people like Coach Sweeney and the whole staff and my teammates, and actually going to bring a teammate with me, Travis. So yeah. Just being the same person I've been through the years and not changing just because, now I'm in the NFL or whatever at a new place, and I think just continuing to be me is the main thing.
Does pressure bother you?
No, I'm used to it. That's really what I'm accustomed to now, and I think that's when I operate the best, is under pressure.
You know what my dad, if he were still with us, would say in response to that clip, Peter? I know exactly what he would say.
Cut your hair.
If you got to run your hand through your hair 3 times while talking to one of your elders for 45 seconds, it's time to go to the barber. Peter, I once got sent back to the barber by my dad because when I came home, my hair wasn't nearly short enough. I had to go back to the barber and say, "Can you take some more off, please?"
Mike, I'll just say this. His hair is real, and it's spectacular. but I'll also make this point. This was one of the cutest things I've seen in a while. Trevor Lawrence gets out of his vehicle. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, opens the door to his car, the back door, and out comes Marissa, his wife. And now here comes Trevor Lawrence, and he goes, "Welcome to Jacksonville." And all of a sudden, there's a bunch of third graders who've come with signs to welcome Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence goes, "Hey, how you doing, y'all?" And he fist bumps all of them and everything. And one of the first questions he gets from one of these kids is your hair real? So, that was his welcome to Jacksonville moment. It was really quite cute. But I'll say this, Mike. What I found really interesting about their draft as a whole is that this is a draft that, to me, when you take Travis Etienne, number 2, and, it sounds like that Urban Meyer, if he didn't get Travis Etienne, or that he would not have taken Etienne if Kadarius Toney was on the board at number 25. But the Giants trumped him basically by taking Kadarius Toney, number 20 overall. So he gets Travis Etienne, who is going to be the kind of guy out of the backfield that they hope will be a Percy Harvin type, not an every down player, but a guy who's going to be able to be that change of pace guy. And what I also found interesting is that they still have a hole at wide receiver. They wanted to get a receiver higher. They wanted to get a tight end higher. I really like Luke Farrell. I watched a lot of Justin Fields late in the year, and I think Luke Farrell will be a better offensive player than the Jaguars think. But be that as it may, I think they wanted this draft to be, we want to help Trevor Lawrence. And the best way we can help him is either with a game-breaking wide receiver or his good friend Travis Etienne. I really like that pick for Jacksonville.
I was surprised. And first of all, I do have to say this before I forget. Trevor Lawrence's dog looks exactly like our dog, Macy. Exactly like they could be from the same litter. That's how much they look alike. That was an important point that I had been waiting to make. Secondly, you mentioned the Kadarius Toney situation. I was surprised that Urban Meyer came out and said he really wanted Toney at 25. And, the message to Travis Etienne is you were, hey, sorry, pal, you were our second choice. I really wanted this other guy that I didn't get. That just doesn't happen. And maybe it's Urban Meyer kind of feeling his way through how the NFL works, but most coaches would not say something like that.
That's why I really like Urban Meyer right now. Honestly, Mike, because like he said to me, remember he said to me a month ago, that's the direction we're going or we're leaning or whatever. When I asked him, Why don't you just make it official and say you're taking Trevor Lawrence or whatever I said? Is there any doubt you're taking Trevor Lawrence? And he gave me that little smirk and said, not really, but I like the fact that someone will say, for instance, was there anything that surprised you or disappointed you? Yeah, we kind of hoped that Kadarius Toney would come down to us. And look, I don't think it's impossible. I'll tell you this. I think it's possible that if Travis Etienne were still on the board, that Buffalo might have taken him, late in the round. But it's not impossible that he would have been there high in the second round for Jacksonville. So I guess what I'm saying, Mike, is I don't think that would have precluded them from getting Travis Etienne.
Or some other running back. I mean, it is nice that they can reunite Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne immediately when they come to the NFL. But there are plenty of other running backs that are out there in every round of the draft. And that's the philosophical question that the Steelers and the Jaguars resolved, at least for this year, in back-to-back fashion at picks number 24 and number 25, respectively, taking a running back in one round. People have some strong feelings about that when you can get a James Robinson, who's also on the depth chart in Jacksonville, who was undrafted. You can get an Alvin Kamara in round 3, a Derrick Henry in round 2. And I'm a firm believer, Peter, if you're going to use a first-round pick on a running back, you better have a plan to have him on the field more often than part of the time. Otherwise, take someone else who is going to be on the field all of the time and get your part-time running back later.
No, I would disagree on that. And I'm not a big fan of taking running backs in the first round as a rule. But I think in this particular case, when you look at the offense that they're going to have, all right, what are they really missing? I mean, to me, they got Marvin Jones in free agency, and I really like that. He's a little bit of an explosive type guy in big downfield throws. They didn't have anybody in the backfield or at tight end or in the intermediate area of the field who could really be a game wrecker. And so I think even if Travis Etienne plays 30 snaps a game, I think they could really be 30 impact snaps if he's used the way he should be used, which is as your Swiss Army knife explosive guy. You're gonna split him out some, and you're gonna have him in the slot some, and he's just gonna be a regular running back. It's hard, but I think Jacksonville was in position with 4 picks high in this draft to take a guy like Travis Etienne. Now, if they had 1 pick in every round and they have a middle round pick, in every round, and they have like 1 pick in the top 50 and he's the 20th pick overall, then I'm not in favor really of taking a gadget guy. But they had the luxury right now because they have so many picks of taking a guy like that who you can pair with James Robinson and have a great combination in the backfield.
The Jaguars right now nationally are kind of a tough team to get a read on because they weren't much of the pre-draft conversation, given that everyone knew they were going to take Trevor Lawrence. We were talking about the 49ers, talking about the Falcons, talking about every team but the Jaguars because there was nothing to talk about. And they were 1-15 last year. What's your guess as to what it's going to take for them? How many wins for us to say, okay, this team's on the right track?
They'll win 5 or 6 games this year. They have the talent now to win 5 or 6 games. They have a quarterback who, in my opinion, even if he has a 1998 Peyton Manning year where he throws 28 interceptions or whatever it was, 24, even if he has that kind of year, he's going to grow. I just looked last year, Mike. 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks picked, they were both on their way to gigantic seasons. And obviously Justin Herbert had one. Joe Burrow would have had one and will be great, in my opinion. And I don't say that lightly. I believe Joe Burrow is going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. And so there's no reason why Trevor Lawrence doesn't come in and win 2 or 3 games that nobody sees coming. Beating Indy, let's say, or beating Tennessee and Nashville. They're going to do some things that will surprise people. And one of the reasons why I think people don't really understand the Jaguars now, Joe Cullen, the new defensive coordinator. No one really knows Joe Cullen right now. comes from Baltimore, where he was a really great defensive line coach. Yeah, I understand that. But also, what are they going to be on offense exactly? Look at Brian Schottenheimer right now. And everybody looks at Brian Schottenheimer and say, meh, But Brian Schottenheimer and Darrell Bevell on offense, to me, are two guys that are going to be great to introduce Trevor Lawrence to an NFL offense, and are going to be able to tell him some really good shortcuts that he's going to need to know. So you got veteran coaches on both sides of the ball, and I think Urban Meyer is basically going to say, I hired you guys to coach, take the reins.
The schedule this year consists of all 4 teams from the NFC West, all 4 teams from the AFC East. The extra game is a visit from the Falcons. In the division, they could get some wins. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And you mentioned Peyton Manning and the 28 interceptions he had as a rookie, the record, which still stands 23 years later. I guarantee you that he will be mapping out the schedule week in and week out, hoping that as many of those rookie quarterbacks are on the field. Because now with 17 games, maybe finally someone will break that record. I talked to him about it. I think when Blake Bortles had gotten close in 2014, I think it was, he jokes about it. He's good-natured about it. He's clearly bothered by the fact that he has held that record for so long, and he really would like someone to do him the honor of breaking it. And with 17 games, there's one more chance for someone to do it. Right, the Dolphins are another team you've done some work on, and this is a team that fascinates me because they're still under the radar screen. We still don't know what to make of them. They had some good games last year. They had some moments. They ultimately didn't make the playoffs, so they fell on the fail side of the pass-fail, are you a successful team line. But they've worked the draft board masterfully. They keep building and building towards something. And, they're in a division that all of a sudden is pretty damn competitive with the Bills and the Patriots, and who knows what Zach Wilson and the Jets are going to be. What's been your impression of the Dolphins based upon their draft?
When I look at the Dolphins right now, this is the first year where I've started to think, okay, they have stopped playing just for the future now. They believe right now, if Tua Tagovailoa is the guy, that they can win right now, okay? Because if you look at that trade that they use Laramie Tunsil for, tentacles of that trade basically are going to last till 2023, when San Francisco's one is, at least right now, the last thing left from that Laramie Tunsil trade. But if you look at the way they drafted, Mike, and everybody said, why would you trade back from 12 to 6 to get Jalen Waddle? You could have stayed at 12 and had that extra number 1 next year. And their thought process, I believe, is very, very simple. We are ready to win now. We are prepared in 2021 to challenge anybody in the NFL and to win right now. So that's why, in my opinion, whereas I think maybe a year or two ago, if they had traded from 3 to 12, I'm not sure they would have gone back up to 6 and taken a future 1 and traded it to get back up to 6 so they could have gotten their receiver. They clearly have said right now, Mike, we believe Jalen Waddle to our team right now is worth 2 first-round draft choices. And so that's the difference in their drafts now. They are picking players now that they believe can help them win both now and in the future. The last thing I would say, from that trade, from that, from their past trades, Chris Greer now has gotten 3 new starters on his offensive line. And in my opinion, those 3 guys really have to be the building blocks because they're low-salaried guys, and they are guys who they think are going to take that offense into the future along with Tua Tagovailoa. But obviously, none of this really matters if Tua can't play. So this is a really important year for him, obviously.
The Jets gave Sam Darnold 3 years to declare himself one way or the other as a franchise quarterback in their estimation, and I think it helped them decide they were going to say he's not because they were in position to get Zach Wilson. How much time do you think Tua is going to get in Miami?
The logical thing to say is that you saw the way Tua got yanked last year. And so clearly, if he got yanked that way last year, Brian Flores has a good backup in Jacoby Brissett, and he'll do it again this year. I think the one difference is last year they had Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has got one of the quirkiest careers in the 101 years of NFL history. That he goes in and he wins that game in Vegas that they have no right to win, throwing a pass with somebody twisting his head like he's in The Exorcist. And so Ryan Fitzpatrick is just a different guy. I don't think that Brian Flores is going to have as quick a trigger, to pull Tua Tagovailoa for Jacoby Brissett, just because I think they want to give Tua an absolutely full opportunity to win this job for the next 10 years. And I don't think they think you do that by yanking him in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you. At some point, you got to let him fight through those moments one way or the other, so he's better prepared for the next time those moments come along. And it may be that losing a game like that once or twice equips him to start winning games like that once he understands the emotions and the flow and everything that goes into trying to dig your way out of a hole that you've created for yourself based upon the early stages of a game. Let's pivot to the 49ers. There's been so much talk about that quarterback decision. And, Sims and I said, as they were caught up in this question of which guy is it going to be, and they seem to be relishing the attention, but also truly undecided, that whenever they did put a name on the card, they were going to try to sell as best they could the idea that whoever they take was the guy all along. And they're still trying to sell that, Peter. I just don't know how many people are buying it.
Well, look, Kyle Shanahan had a very, he had a long explanation for me, 2 minutes and 37 seconds as to why they picked him. That's long in media parlance. And, the longer that I talk to him, the more I believe him about Trey Lance. Because I think he believes that Trey Lance, in the way that modern quarterbacks play, that is he as accurate, especially as accurate downfield as Mac Jones is? No, he's not. But especially in modern football, when pockets collapse and you have to make some plays on the run, that Trey Lance, that is his major advantage over Mac Jones. And I believe, Kyle Shanahan. But, Mike, I'll also say this. I think Kyle Shanahan legitimately struggled with this decision. He told me, on Saturday night, essentially that there were times when I would look at the tape and I would say, this guy absolutely is the guy. And then the next day I would say, man, what was I thinking? I would look at this play, or I would think he only threw the ball 320 times or whatever in his college career at that level of competition. And he would question himself. But I think at the end of the day, the athleticism won over, and he understands that he's not getting as precise a passer as he would be getting in Mac Jones. And I understand what Chris Sims says as a quarterback. You can make plays all day from the pocket, and he will. And I think that Mac Jones is going to have a very good NFL career. And I think he would have been good, really good in San Francisco. But I think the athleticism really convinced Shanahan to go the other direction.
Yeah, I think it's the philosophical shift away from the Kirk Cousins-style quarterback who can run the play that's called exactly the way Kyle Shanahan wants it to be run. Every move, every hitch, every read, every throw, everything. He's basically an extension of Kyle Shanahan. And now Shanahan is embracing the Patrick Mahomes off-schedule abilities that when the play that's called goes to hell, instead of throwing it away, taking a sack, finding some way to just end it and move on to the next play, you've got a guy who can use his athleticism to create something on the fly. And that is so antithetical to the way Kyle Shanahan views offense. He views offense as everything is planned out and mapped out, and if we do it my way, we're going to crack the code of the defense and we're going to win the game. The last thing he wants is his quarterback out there running around like he's in someone's backyard just trying to make something happen. And I think that was the tension, and that's why some believe that Mac Jones was the guy when they made the move, and that someone or more than one someones within the 49ers organization gently nudged Shanahan over a period of 5 weeks toward Trey Lance. You know, if they do the trade the day of the draft, maybe it is Mac Jones.
If you are, well, look, if they don't make the trade, they would have drafted Mac Jones. If they're sitting there, where they're regularly going to draft, say at number 12, they would have taken Mac Jones. But I think what this got to be about, Mike, is this perception got out there that the 49ers are taking Mac Jones. And honestly, that was great for the 49ers because whether they ended up taking Mac Jones or not, so the trade is made on March 26th, all right? And right away, Chris Sims, who's obviously close to Kyle Shanahan, Adam Schefter, who knows Kyle very well, they both basically said, hey, we don't know what they're going to do, but we think that, that the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones. And so, and sometimes got even stronger than that. The reason I think that was good for the 49ers is that it allowed them to basically now, even inside their own building. Kyle Shanahan told me, Mike, that when he thought that a coach was talking to him, his offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, whatever, and thought that, well, I know you like Trey Lance because of this, that he would go back at him and he says, no, I like Mac Jones because of this. And so he would never even tell. He told me that he did not tell the coaches on his staff until Trevor Lawrence was picked by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He said it was that important to us to keep an absolute lid on it.
But why? Peter, I don't get it. No one was going to jump them for Trey Lance or Mac Jones. I think this is the old solution without a problem, being cute, trying to get some attention so you build a mystery so people tune in for the draft. I think what it does now, it sets up an apples-to-apples comparison between Trey Lance and Mac Jones. And if Jones ends up being a star with the Patriots and Lance struggles, in part because they stick him on the bench for a year or two behind Jimmy Garoppolo, they are going to look like buffoons for giving up 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick to get Trey Lance.
What if you're trying to convince the world that you're going to take Mac Jones? What if there's 5 teams out there? What if there's 5 teams out there that have engaged you to some degree about Jimmy Garoppolo and have talked to you a little bit about trading for Garoppolo, and you have said all along, we're not trading Garoppolo unless you give us a 1. And so now if there's a bunch of teams out there, and who knows, maybe it's New England, maybe it's 4 or 5 other teams who eventually were going to take a quarterback in this draft and who say, well, if they secretly love Mac Jones the way the 49ers really liked Mac Jones and they know they're not going to get him, maybe they pay the 49ers a 1 for Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, that never happened. That's all I can think of, Mike, that it was to their advantage to convince teams that they were taking Mac Jones, because then some team that wanted Mac Jones was then going to have to engage him on Garoppolo.
I just think they've been all over the place, and I don't think it's nearly as strategic as they want us to think. I think they got freaked out by the fact that they whiffed on Mahomes. They got freaked out by the fact that they said no thank you to a Tom Brady homecoming, and both of those guys were in the Super Bowl last year, and they got desperate. And now they're trying to make it look like they had a plan all along. And I think the plan was, holy crap, what do we do to fix this situation at quarterback? Let's throw 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick onto the pile, and we'll figure out later what it is that we're going to do. And now they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're trying to sell the idea that he's going to be the wire-to-wire starter in 2021, and I don't buy that either.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.